Ratios. This is a start of a new topic. And ratios uses all the ideas you've learned in fractions and in rationals, but we apply it now to some other ideas. This very first video is basically what is a ratio and how do we write it. So I've got a couple of things up on the board which you can have a look at. First of all, there's two different types of ratios. There's one, the first type is the same unit of measure with unlike magnitudes. So for example, you have 2 teaspoons to 3 teaspoons, but they're unlike magnitudes, so you have 2 to 3, and it happens to be 2 teaspoons of salt to 3 teaspoons of baking soda. All right, so unit of measure is the teaspoons, and the unlike magnitude are the numbers. And that's just an example of a ratio. You're comparing one to the other. All right, the next thing is that you can have a different unit of measure and unlike magnitudes. So again, the magnitudes are different. You could actually have the same. You could have 1 to 1, but really that's not saying any different ratio. But the different unit of measure means that we have teaspoons to cups. And so you can have the same teaspoons to teaspoons or teaspoons to cups, which is different units of measure. So these both came from sort of making cookies or something. You can imagine what it might be if you like chocolate, brownies, you can imagine that. It's up to you. But the major thing is that notice this double little dots there. That is, use the word to say that. So 2 teaspoons of sugar to 1 cup milk, 2 teaspoons salt to 3 teaspoons baking soda. Now, that's basically the basis of ratios. Now, how do you write the ratios? If you have a ratio of 7 to 8, which is mostly what you're going to look at and work with in this math topic, you will have some word problems as well, but to start with, you have to figure out or have to learn how to work with just the numbers by themselves first. So here's a ratio of 7 to 8 written out. The way that you can write that is 7 to 8 like that. And the second way you can do that for just 2 numbers would be 7 over 8, like a fraction, right? So you can do that for if you have just 2 numbers as a ratio. Now you can have 3 numbers, you can have 4 numbers, you can have 5 numbers, you can have ample number of numbers in a ratio as long as it has meaning. What is that ratio? This to this to this to this, and it's all consistent in some way. So if you have 7 to 8 to 2 as a ratio, you can only write it in that manner. You cannot do it with 3 or more terms in a fractional form like you can with 2. So you could see then that with a ratio of just 2 numbers, you can actually do a lot more with it. It's a little bit more flexible, or it's easier to do it. Here though, you are going to do just as many things when you have a ratio with 3 numbers. Reason why you can't do it as a fraction, well, let's say you had 7 over 8 all divided by 2, or you may want to write this as 7 divided by 8 over 2. Which one is correct? They both give different answers. If you try this one, you have 7/8 divided by 2, which is equal to 7 over 8 times 1/2, and that's 7 over 16. Whereas if you had this one, this is the same as saying 7 divided by 8 over 2, or 7 divided by 4, which is 7 times 1/4, and that's 7 quarters. Notice that 7/16 does not equal 7 quarters. So you cannot write this as a fraction. That's just a proof. Do not go into this because it doesn't work. You don't know which one it is. So it doesn't work. Okay, don't write it as a fraction. You can write these as fractions, not 3 or more as fractions. And that's it for the beginning of ratios.